Hey guys, Automated Garage back today, working on an old OBS 7.3 Powerstroke here. Customer just bought this, got a real good deal on a work truck. He's basically gonna hook this to his gooseneck trailer and never unhook it, use it for moving his tractors around. Did a couple little odd and end things to it. Had to replace 2 wheel studs, as you see there, and lug nuts. They were broke off for some reason. Check the brakes on it, check the ball joints, bearings. Only other thing I could find that really needed fixing sooner than later is the twin I-beam bushings, the center bushings on it. They're not wore out, but they're pretty worn. But we got that going on. Got to replace a door handle on it here in the door that's broke. And try to tighten this door panel up for him, flopping around. But the main fix is this right here. So this is a common thing with these older trucks. That bearing surface and everything in here is just slap wore out. So we've done a couple things so far. I pulled this shroud off, which is easier than normal, and the bottom one because so much of this stuff is broke. We're doing a little bit of super gluing. This is broke out around the headlight switch. I got this stuff drying. The tabs broke off for the wait to start light and all that portion of the dash here. So I'm trying to do what I can to help him out here on this to hold all that stuff together. So I'm gonna show y'all pulling the center portion of the steering wheel, pulling the steering wheel, getting the column out and replacing it. And what we're going with, he ordered this, I think it was out of a junkyard in Texas, Patterson Auto Wrecking. I think it was like 125 bucks or something. It wasn't nothing too bad. It's got a Dorman shifter lever on it. This feels a little worn here. He still has the OEM one on his up there. So we're gonna see which one's the better of the two, and we may swap those out while we're doing it. But it came complete other than the steering wheel. So pretty easy job here. It's just a matter of unplugging some wires, undoing the steering column, undoing the steering stem at the bottom, and swapping all this out. But I thought I'd run y'all through it because this is a common thing, and you can replace these bearings in here. But a lot of times, once it's got to this point, everything is so wore out that you're gonna put the bearings in, and it's gonna end up doing this again and not be really tight to begin with. So let's replace the steering column. All right, so starting out, we gotta get the steering wheel off of here. So this just pops off. This would normally be plugged in. I'm not even sure where the plug is for his cruise control. We're gonna see if we can't find that to get this hooked back up for him and see if that still works. We have a 15mm bolt right in the middle. And you can use a steering wheel puller. I've had success using a harmonic balancer puller before for this. So you're gonna thread your bolt back in just partially. We got our harmonic balancer puller here. We're gonna see which bolts thread in there. And just like that, you get your steering wheel pulled. See if we can't make a dinger stop. The tumbler wore out too. There's the problem right there. The ground came out of the tumbler. All right, so now we gotta get down here. We're gonna get our steering stem loose. Our 2 bolts for the column. You gotta unplug everything. That'll come out. I'll show you all that down here. All right, so we're down here under the column now. So you got this little 7mm for your ignition switch. Then you got a bunch of other electrical connectors here. You got this one, the one up here on this little round drum. You have to undo your cable selector also. You got the 4 bolts that hold the whole column up here. That one right down there. this one here, and the same thing on the other side. And then we have to undo the universal right here that the steering shaft comes down to. And then we'll be able to pull this whole thing out. If I'm forgetting anything right now, I'll remember it in a minute and I'll show y'all. So I'm gonna get all this stuff loose. All these connectors are old, so be gentle with them. It's a 7/32 right here for the selector cable. Which another thing I didn't mention earlier is this transmission, you have to shift it manually right now from 1, 2, 3 drive. It'll shift out to overdrive fine, and it shifts fine manually shifting it. So I'm not really a transmission guy, so I send all my stuff to Buddy Farrell Transmission that's in Atoka, not far from us. He does really good transmission work, really good guy. We gotta undo our stem now. That's a 12mm. So before we get down there and take our four bolts out and undo our gear shifter lever down there from the bottom, we gotta take the tumbler out and pull this top cover off, which you can't get the top cover off with the tumbler in, and you gotta undo the electrical connections that are right here under this cover. Take your tumbler out, you just need a punch or a small round tool. You go right in the hole right there in the tumbler, have the key in the on position, and then the tumbler will slide out. There we go. Now we take the cover off. This is why it was dinging earlier. This is supposed to go right here. If it doesn't see ground, your dinger is just gonna ding the whole time. So now before we get down there and undo our 4 bolts and undo our linkage to get the steering column out, you have these other electrical connectors here at the top. You have one here, you have one on the side there, and you have that one. Don't fight with these connectors. Just take this whole blinker, windshield wiper, high-low beam assembly out. You got 2 T20s, you got one up at the top, and you got one down here in the bottom. Take those out, this whole thing will swing out of the way. I've already got the bottom one out. So you can just swing this whole thing out of your way here and undo that plug right there, which this plug goes to your gear shift for your overdrive light and all that, which we're gonna see which one we want to use. This is a factory one still. It's missing the cap on the end. The other one was a dormant like I showed you earlier, so we'll make a decision on that. All right, so right here is your gear shift linkage. Just take your cat claw and gently pop it off. It's just on a little ball socket there. So now that's free. 4 bolts for our column, or 12s. Well, the column's going to drop after this, so put a hand on it. So now, when you drop your column, we already undid the end of the linkage on the ball I showed y'all. So this is just stuck in this bracket on the column for your cable that goes to your transmission. You can swing it down to get easier access to it here. What you have to be careful of is your brake switch here. You can work it out, but don't break this switch off. Don't let it slam down on it. So now we're gonna slide this out, and then the whole column is gonna be free. So I want to show y'all this after the fact. To get this out, if you'll look right there on the side, there's that little tab with a hole. That hole is stuck right in that hole. So use the same punch you use to get your tumbler out and just push that tab in that hole, and then this thing will slide out so you don't break it, because that's the only thing that holds it in there. So now we got our whole column out. You can see that bearing surface right there where it's all worn and loose, And when you pop this lower cover off, this was sitting upside down right here. So a telltale sign, these are all little ball bearings and pieces of the bearing that have fallen out of the column here. So that's what's causing all the play. And honestly, it's easier to just replace the whole column almost than it is to do the bearings if you can get a good deal on a column. Another wear point that you may want to check on the column you're replacing, these little plastic bushings for your gear shifter assembly here, these will wear too and get all loose and worn. And if you're not careful, it'll start wearing into the shaft also. So that's something to check on the column you're going to put in. So here's our new column. I didn't even pay attention to it. That's cracked. And this upper one, the bushing slid all the way out of it. So, and you can see they did the typical junkyard thing and just cut the plug for this. So we're going to go on, before we even put this in, we're going to get this cover off, which involves, again, removing this tumbler. Take the cover off. We're going to take the blinker assembly off. We're going to pull this off. We're going to steal these factory ones. We're going to hope these bushings are in good shape. If they're not, I'm going to get, we may be getting one sent out here. So here is our bushings out of our old column I was showing y'all here. These are the ones out of the old one. And this one's like almost paper thin. So we're going to reuse these because these are pretty good. So we're going to take our 2 clamps that came off of the original that we took out and our 2 bushings, move it over to this one. I got the tumbler pulled out already and the cover pulled off. The only other thing we got to do before we can start putting it in is take this blinker assembly off of this one, because like I was showing y'all, they just probably wasted a good working assembly and just cut all the wires to it. So we'll take that off and then get to putting the new column in and putting all this back together. There's something else I noticed. If you look at how straight this assembly is down here, and you come over to this one, so old Billy in the junkyard, I guess, got rough pulling this one out. So we're gonna go over the vise. We're gonna clamp that in the vise, straighten that out. And I think that's bent just a little bit too, that may be right. We're gonna go straighten that out in the vise. All right, we got her all straightened out. Wasn't no problem. And I could see how you could bend that kind of easy taking it out in Billy's defense over in the junkyard. So let's get this thing put in. All right, so same thing as reverse. Get that gear shift cable put back in the slot first. Just like that, it pops back in. I don't know if y'all can see what I'm doing, but you gotta work this back up without tearing anything up, just like that. And that L bracket that goes up goes just to the left of your brake light switch. Make sure you don't push all your wires up in here. Get you a bolt started. With this able to move a little bit, it'll make it a little bit easier doing all your electrical connections. We're going to connect all our electrical connections. Your steering stem, you can pull in and out. So don't worry, you can do that last. That won't be a problem. So let's get all this hooked up and then do the steering stem. We'll throw our steering wheel back on. Put the pieces of this dash back together, because somebody's gotten pretty rough with all this stuff. As gentle as we can, put it back together. And we'll be ready to try this thing out. All right, so the only issue I've run into is the connectors are slightly different. They go to the push pin connector up here. It comes in contact with the steering wheel. So the one that came on the new column is gray. The 2 old ones are black. So I've got to move the pins over. So here's one with no pins in it. If you've never done this, here's the old one. If you'll see that red piece down in the middle, you can slightly, there's a release. Come on. There's that little red release right in the middle down of that well. So you push it and this red slide will come all the way out. There's the red slide I took out of this old one right here. And then if you look down in there, there's little bitty tabs for each one of the wires. Just take you a pick and you gently pull down on that tab to open it up enough, and it releases this little round part of the pin. You pull the pin out. So we're just gonna do the same thing with this connector and here, put all the wires back in the same place, and then we'll have the connector that matches. If you look at this plug, this one's skinny up here and this one's wide down here on the slot. It's opposite is what it is. So I was trying to put the skinny in there and the narrow in the other. So we're gonna swap these pins out, these plugs out, and we'll be good to go on that. All right, we got all of our electrical connections made back up. Got our plug fixed. We transferred it over, took the pins out, put all that back in. Everything's plugged up, ignition switch back in. Thank goodness that was the same. They didn't change that at all. So now we're gonna do our steering stem, tighten our 4 bolts up here. Then we're gonna jump up here and get to putting the steering wheel and the tumbler and the cover and all that stuff back on. So we're gonna finish this out and make sure this thing all works right. Now that we know everything works, we can throw our steering wheel back on. Let's not listen to that dinging. Nice and tight. Make sure the tilt works. All right, guys, so we're all together. No more shaky steering wheel. Everything works right. We patched the dash together best we could. I know it's not pretty, but this ain't all broke out now, and it'll work for now till he gets him a new one. If he gets a new one, I just like to try to fix stuff best I can, make it look best I can. I love how these first gen Powerstrokes idle. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Hope this will help you out if you have a loose, wore out steering column. This will apply for 92 through 96 F150, 250s, and 350s. I don't remember what the 87 to 91 column was like exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was a little different. But anyways, pretty easy to swap out. There's plenty of them in junkyards, especially since the body styles, even into the 250s and 350s, shared the same dash, interior, steering column, all that good stuff. So it's Automatic Garage signing out. Y'all like, subscribe, comment, check us out at Facebook, Instagram, and Rumble. Also, I'm going to bring y'all a whole lot more Ford stuff, a whole lot more content here in this nice new shop that we're working in. Just really enjoying this. So we're signing out. We'll holler at y'all later.